Wants to stay together off of Chicago.
Oh, yeah, you should.
Right, he wants to stay. He wants to stay. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna touch base with the council. I sent out an email, but I just want to get enough, if I get 4 of them, good to go.
Mr. Ball.
Mr. Ball. Start calling him Mr. Ball.
Brian, how to give you a little.
I just said, she's on my list. I just have to time to book with her. No, that's okay.
I'm gonna run some by you guys. I just sent an email. I was gonna try to get it.
Hour back. Hello, we all vote. All right, I'll take no. That'd be great, because I've got to turn it around for a story. Theater manager?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a charter. Yeah, well, I understand. You're still here, though.
I didn't.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Use that line, I
So I got to sit in on the lawsuit. It was interesting.
Is that the only one?
He just says, you like what he's doing, you don't like him, actually. But he said, and it's all about the reforms, he said.
So you're, that's on both.
I said,
And I that's the one I'm using. How Gary looked when he first. Yeah, okay, thanks, Gary.
That's the key. He's not, I mean, they pushed him on that. Well, he says.
It's probably. I know.
Yeah, junior high. That's what I usually get.
That's why I said, where were you going to go with that?
I don't have to know. Caitlin likes it, that's all that counts.
There you go. Oh, no problem. How are you, sir? Yeah, you too. How are you? All right.
No.
Your office outside today? Enjoy some of the weather or what? From my blinds. Stair walk. I'm not an engineer kind of guy.
I'm pretty sure it's purple. Yeah. My wife's back. You signed it.
How you doing, Marianne?
Hey, living the dream.
Oh, I'm worried if there's water pitchers at the table. You know what that means?
That is a worry.
You know what that means?
That's a big
Is it me or are we just blowing through our agenda? Aren't we supposed to be starting at 6:50?
We get some scissors. We got a purple tie on, Chris. That purple tie, we get some scissors.
Oh, that works. You're right.
Oh, yeah, here. Hey, my sacrifice is.
Hey, Steve.
All right.
You met Danny? Oh, okay, great.
Well, very nice. She's gonna be missed.
Yeah, she is. Watched DC for the conference last year. Have the same level of respect for her in that context. She'll still be active. Just come and join us and
Well, we've got some. Dan Dory, he's working hard. Scott Crest. Probably do most of the speaking. Oh, yeah, well, not any opposition to the whole thing.
I'm only one vote, but I,
It might.
So far back.
I mean, he wouldn't have done it anyway, but that just.
Yeah, we do that.
No, we make sure the boundary lines are, see the marks of the boundaries.
Brought Nancy. She was that guy.
Good evening. Before we begin tonight, we do have a proclamation to present. And Andrew Johnson from Connect Transit, if you'd come up and join me for this. Today, we have a proclamation. This is Andrew Johnson, who is the Executive Director of our transit system here in town. And we're recognizing Stand Up for Transportation Day in Illinois. And I'll read this proclamation, which is, whereas April 9th, 2015 marks the Stand Up for Transportation Day, a national transportation infrastructure day that highlights the critical need to invest in updating our nation's transportation infrastructure. And whereas transportation is the economic backbone of our nation's economy and public transportation is an important part of our nation's transportation system, federal funding for public transportation infrastructure needs to increase, and Congress needs to pass a long-term multimodal transportation bill by May 31st, 2015. And whereas public transportation is a proven catalyst for economic growth, since every dollar invested in public transportation, $4 in economic returns is generated locally, creating an economically vibrant and prosperous communities. And whereas public transportation offers millions of Americans access to economic opportunities, since nearly 60% of the trips taken on public transportation are for work commutes. And where Stand Up for Transportation Day will be celebrated in small, medium, and large communities across the United States as a day that highlights the critical need for funding transportation infrastructure, both public transportation and highway infrastructure. Now therefore, I, Chris Coos, Mayor of the Town of Normal, do hereby proclaim April 9th, 2015 as Stand Up for Transportation Day in the Town of Normal, and encourage all residents of Normal to recognize that our quality public transportation services are essential for the economic prosperity of our country, our communities, and for individuals. So, and there you go.
My great thanks to the mayor and to the council and to all the hardworking staff of the Town of Normal. Public transportation and the investment made in public transportation allows people in the Town of Normal to get to work, to school, to health care, to wherever they need to go, both in Normal and throughout the Bloomington Normal community. And now more than ever, we need the federal government and our other state and local governments to make the continued investment in public transportation, so we can continue to grow the community and continue to move forward. So thank you very much.
Somebody's been in my chair.
Not me.
We get a picture. Sure. Oh, there he is. Oh, sorry.
Let me try one. Let me try that one more thing. Okay, I'll try to chat with you, sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Not working.
Call to order a regular meeting for the normal local liquor commission. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Coos?
Here?
Mrs. Reese? Here. Mr. Fritzen? Here. Mr. McCarthy? Here. Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Gaines is not here.
Most of our business is routine here tonight. We have an omnibus agenda, and on that item is the annual renewal of liquor licenses, and before you is a fairly lengthy list of the licenses by category in the town. Anything to report on these?
No.
Nope. Everyone is renewed?
Everyone is renewed.
Okay. So we have 58 establishments that have licenses approved. You'll notice some history also on the agenda, some new licenses that have been approved in the last
No, those are to be approved.
3 months, yes, since we've sat at our last regular meeting. Those were Amigos Express, and, no, these are new licenses tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have new licenses. The first item is a new license approval for BAPS 12 LLC, doing business as Amigos Express, 616 Rab Road, Unit D in Normal. Motion for approval?
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. We also have a,
Do we need to approve the other licenses?
oh, you're right, I'm sorry. We need a motion to approve all the licenses that we just, in the annual renewal.
So moved.
Thank you. I'm not on my game here tonight. We have a second?
Yep.
Okay. Discussion on that item. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. The 58 annual renewals are approved. Item 8 is a new license approval for NPD Concessions Incorporated at 1000 West Rab Road in Normal. Motion for approval on that one.
Move approval. Second.
Is there comments on this? Mr. Fritzen?
Is this new because there's a new concessionaire at the Corn Crib, or is this a different license than what was in place before?
This is a change of concessionaires. Previously, it was Sodexo who had that, and the Corn Belters have decided to take it in-house and do it on their own. But they do have a separate LLC for the concessions within their organization.
But the Class D license is what was in place
Correct.
previously.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Coos?
Aye. We have a couple of complaint and citations, and these are settled cases. One is Bradford Lane Italian Foods LLC, doing business as Rosati's Pizza at 1720 Bradford Lane. Do we need action on this? We do not need action on these. And the next one would be Chronister Oil Incorporated, doing business as Quick and Easy Convenience Stores at 1609 North Main Street. I will say that Rosati's Pizza has agreed of a fine of $500 for failure to file returns and pay taxes on their food and beverage taxes. And we have reached agreement with them on that, and they're bringing their taxes, their in arrears in order. And we have a first violation for Quick and Easy, and they have settled to a $250 fine. We have not approved minutes either, have we? I'm just all over the map tonight. We will need an action to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, January 20th, 2015,
Move approval.
February 2nd, 2015, and February 16th, 2015. Thank you.
Second.
Any corrections or changes? I'm just having fun with this here.
Whatever, whatever you feel like.
I can't wait till the
Please
next
call roll.
meeting.
Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritson?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The minutes are approved. And I think that concludes our business here at the Liquor Commission, so a motion for adjournment, please. One more.
One question. I
Certainly.
should have asked this earlier, but I was a little confused. No,
I was glad to help with that.
Yeah, in the text prior on the omnibus agenda, it mentions a newer licensee that was unaware of the food and beverage tax charge. How is that?
Well, we try to make them aware of it. Whether we missed it this time, I'm not sure. I actually wasn't here when this license was issued at the time, but we are going to make certain everyone knows about it from the time. The city of Bloomington should have notified them also. I don't know what happened.
Just a reminder, City of Bloomington collects that tax for both entities, where we collect the vehicle use tax by agreement, so it slipped through the cracks. The clerk and I have discussed it, and we're going to make sure that every business license holder gets notice when they apply, if they're selling food or beverage, that they know they're supposed to pay the tax. But we're working with the business to get that resolved.
How big a period of time are we talking about there?
2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we have a motion for
So
adjournment.
moved. We adjourn.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The normal local liquor commission is adjourned. Call to order a public hearing pertaining to the proposed community development block grant, 5-year consolidated plan, and the 2015-2016 annual action plan. Please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor Kus?
Here.
Mrs. Reese?
Here.
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Gaines?
Here.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to a proposed community development block grant, 5-year consolidated plan? Second time, is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to a proposed community development block grant 5-year consolidated plan? And third and final time, is there anyone here wishing to speak pertaining to a proposed community development block grant 5-year consolidated plan?
Do we adjourn?
No. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. Public hearing is adjourned. Call to order a regular meeting.
Real quickly, just, this will come back April 6th, is that right? The next meeting, I think this will come back for approval. I also want to point out Ben Juergens sitting out there nodding his head. Wait, raise your hand. Ben is our accountant, and he's been for, among many other duties, our community development block grant officer, done just a stellar job. He announced recently he's going to be leaving the team, moving to Little Rock, Arkansas with his fiancee. So we wish him well. We're very sorry to see him go. He is a very, very bright young fellow, and we wish we'd have kept him longer, but we certainly thank him for his service, and particularly on the community development program. It is a very complicated program to administer, and he's done a super job. So thank you, Ben, and good luck. He's not leaving right away. He'll be here for maybe another 2-3 months, but he'll be leaving soon. So I just wanted to acknowledge him before we moved on. Thank you.
Call to order a regular meeting for the normal town council for March 16, 2015. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus?
Here.
Mrs. Reese?
Here.
Mr. Fritzen?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Ms. Gaines?
Here.
We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a very brief agenda again tonight, and we'll start with the omnibus vote agenda. These are items that are considered routine and will be handled by one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. And I would like to be excused from voting on any bills I may have incurred in my duties as mayor. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I'd like to pull item H, please.
H. You already did. Everybody wants to talk about H tonight. Mr. Fox.
Yes, I'd like to be excused from voting on any bills submitted by Advocate Broman or any bills incurred in the course of my duties.
Motion for approval?
Move approval.
Before we have the vote, the items we're considering tonight are the approval of the minutes of the public hearing of March 2nd, 2015, and approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 2nd, 2015. We are approving Town of Normal expenditures for payment as of March 11th, 2015. We have a resolution authorizing an agreement for construction materials testing services for the 2015 construction season, and that's with Ramsey Geotechnical Engineering, LLC. We have a resolution waiving the formal bid process and authorizing staff to negotiate a contract with Champaign Signal and Lighting Company for traffic control equipment and highway lighting maintenance services. We have a resolution to appropriate $1,100,000 of motor fuel tax funds for the bituminous resurfacing of various streets for the 2014-2015 MFT, motor fuel tax, street resurfacing project. We have a supplemental resolution approving $79,529.69 of motor fuel tax funds for the replacement of the Virginia Avenue Bridge over Sugar Creek east of Main Street. And we have a resolution authorizing assignment under the Constitution Trail Center Development Agreement. And we have an ordinance amending Section 11.4-5B of the Municipal Code of the Town of Normal, and that is in regarding to the maintenance of smoke alarms. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The omnibus agenda is approved, with the exception of item H, which is a resolution conditionally approving an amendment to the final development plan for the University Center PUD for the addition of a telecommunications tower, and that's at 1101 North Main Street. Mr. Scott.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Yes, Mayor. First, I want to thank the staff and the Planning Commission for reviewing this like they do with so many resolutions that come to us. I think it was really good and thorough thought process. And I understand that there's a need for additional towers, and this tower is one that's 105 feet. Apparently, that's relatively short in terms of cell towers, and it'll reach approximately a mile or so. And there's desire to put a fence around the tower, an attractive fence. But I'm not certain that a 6-foot fence can really hide a 105-foot tower very well. I also appreciate that it was pointed out in the review that there may be some landscape materials that provisions that should possibly be addressed. Maybe they should be addressed regardless of whether or not this resolution goes through. I'm not real particularly fond of having a 105-foot tower at one of the on Main Street in Normal, primary north entrance into this community. It seems to me that there certainly would be somewhere else within a 1-mile radius that would be less visually offensive than a 10-foot tower along Main Street. So I'm not in favor of this particular resolution.
Further on the item, Ms. Gaines?
Well, I was going to pull this also. I guess I don't have such an issue with the tower itself, but looking at the picture that we had of what it might look like, I'm a bit bothered by that with the fence that was surrounding it, because I do think it needs to be made much more attractive. And I mean no offense, but right now that northern part of that complex just looks like it needs a lot of attention anyway. And then if we're going to have something that's going to be tall and drawing people's eyes there, I'd prefer that we make certain that there's a lot more landscaping put around that and around the whole area there. And if we can, if this may be an impetus to really spruce up the whole place, then I have no problem with that tower. But just sticking a tower there as it is, we need a little bit more than that.
Further on that, Mrs. Reese?
Well, I was going to share information that I gathered at the National League of Cities meeting that I attended a week ago. This whole business of cell towers, telecommunication towers, is major with many cities around the country because of the proliferation of our devices and our need to have that communication. So lots of talk was going on about the importance of co-location. So you don't have one tower and another tower and another tower, but you develop strategies to make sure you can put lots of things on a tower when you do approve one. But also, we spent some time talking about alternatives to the tower as we've known it. Some that are stealth towers. They are designed to look like a tree, and so they blend in, sort of, with the location around. At least they don't jump out at you. So also, they were showing park benches where the legs of the park bench end up forming cell towers. And so I think thinking ahead, maybe this isn't the day, but I'm going to suggest that we back off on other plans for these things and look at what's being done in technology and in the whole appearance of our community. The process is changing so rapidly that we will see more and more requests coming in. Expected, some cities will be seeing 100 to 200 requests coming in this summer time. So getting ourselves ready for it, I don't know that that's likely to happen in this community, but it might. And I just don't know what is the need out there. But trying to get ahead of it, we always try to do planning before these things hit. And so this is one that we need some conversation and need to understand the options that are out there from a technology standpoint. So when we have somebody come in, we can have a dialogue with them about things that they've considered counter to a tower. Towers in residential areas is also a growing concern. And so to the extent that we have a game plan ahead of time for that, is smart for us. So happy to pass information on that I gathered at that. I'll get that to staff.
Thank you. Ms. Gaines?
The other question I had is there, I remember talking about this years ago when we first started having towers come in, but do we have something in this agreement that says if the company who's putting it up or whatever determines they don't need it there or want it there anymore, they are responsible for taking it down and making certain the site's put back?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Fritzen?
A couple of questions. One, are our code provisions still valid? The regulations that require the different setbacks and the distances from residential areas and the like, it has been, some time, and it's a fast-changing area, obviously, and things, the connectivity is so important now that as I read through this and look at I'm sure they're not just random setbacks and the like, but somewhere along the way we established these standards based on some study, and I'm wondering if they are still valid.
I think that's an excellent question. You're right, these standards were put together many years ago when these kinds of towers were still, it was a fairly new phenomenon. This council has routinely waived some of those requirements, so they probably could use a review. And I think that there certainly is a safety concern, falling ice or ice that might blow out of the wind might blow ice out of the tower, or certainly if it would fall or collapse. Of course, even with the setbacks talking about here, it wouldn't hit any dwelling unit or anything like that. But It probably is worthy of a review, because we haven't changed these in a number of years. So I would agree with that.
The other question I had is on the page 3 of the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting, there's a statement there that says, Mr. Karplus said that there are federal regulations that do not allow prohibition if there are gaps in coverage. And if it was in the report, I missed it, but I read that in the minutes in the back there, so I thought, how then do we determine if there is indeed a gap? How do we verify that? And, if there is a better location or a less obtrusive location within a mile radius, what is the mechanism then to deny this one in favor of another one if we supposedly can't deny when there are gaps?
Well, are you prepared to take a stab at that one?
Under the Communications Act, the FCC does have some regulations, and this would be on local regulations that would effectively prohibit the use of personal devices or the coverage for those devices. So, I mean, it basically comes down to a technical analysis of what's required and what the proposed facility would accomplish.
Yeah, I think in this case, this is determined to be the optimum location. There may be other locations that would work, aren't quite as good. Again, representatives of the applicant are here, and I'm sure they can speak to those technical issues and whether or not they looked at other alternative sites in the general vicinity that would have worked, may not have been either as good as in terms of actual connectivity as good as this site, or may not have found property owners that were willing to have the tower on the site. I don't know, but in the case of the FCC, is if we had a rule that basically you couldn't have any service, then that would be contrary to federal law.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yeah, thank you. As usual, if I wait long enough, my more seasoned colleagues ask all my questions. I did get contacted by a resident who lives in the neighborhood, whose backyard looks right in the area, and expressed concern about the aesthetic, really. He didn't express any concerns about the security issues or safety issues about it. And so, one, I was wondering if this seems to be quite a large variance from our code. Essentially, the same question Mr. Fridgeson asked is do we need a code review? And I'm a little stuck on the aesthetic of it right on the main corridor, and wondering if we'd even looked at other areas about putting a tower, or if that was part of the consideration at all, or is this the place it needs to be to get the coverage that we need?
Mayor, I might ask if Mr. Tremmel and Ms. Davison may have some things to add. They were involved in the review. In terms of the notion of being too close that to a major thoroughfare, that's something that would be helpful for staff. To my knowledge, there are 2 other towers along Main Street that are actually closer than this one will be.
Okay.
One behind Freedom Oil, which is very close to Main Street. The
Yep.
other one near Kingsley Junior High, which is relatively close
Right.
to Main Street. We have a tower right next to College Avenue, which is a major thoroughfare. So it's, we've generally not considered distance to thoroughfares. So if that's something you'd like us to look at, we'll need to know that, and that would, maybe either build that into the regulations, or at least be aware of it at the staff level, that we want to avoid towers that are close to major streets. The fence on the lower level, of course, is not designed to screen the tower. You can't do that. It's designed to screen the ground level activities. There are some installations on the ground, and most of our towers throughout the community do have some sort of fencing to screen the ground equipment, ground level equipment. So I don't know if you guys had anything to add to the...
Sure. Well, in addition to what's been discussed, the Planning Commission also was a little concerned about the stark whiteness of the fence, so they asked that it be a different color, and the cell tower representative has proposed a brown, which is certainly, in my opinion, less obtrusive. They've also submitted a landscaping plan showing arborvitae, which is pretty common evergreen to be planted, like pretty much completely surrounding the compound with the exception of where the doors are. Also planting about a dozen evergreens along the creek on the west side to better screen against the residential. The development as it is currently, there is a landscaping plan on file for it that was approved in '89. It itself wasn't some elaborate landscaping plan, but it was, it was approved, and some of those plants are missing, so those need to be replaced anyway. And the developer has said that he would do that, so that they would bring it up to current plan and then add a row of evergreens along the portion of the creek that's nearest to the cell tower. So some of those concerns are being addressed. As far as co-location goes, I certainly would defer to the representative who's here. We did ask about it, and there are no existing towers where they could just put this equipment on it and it would solve this problem. So there does need to be a new tower somewhere in this vicinity. Now, whether there are other locations, I can't say specifically. If this tower goes up, it would have the ability to provide co-location, and code requires that. I mean, it's not an option to just throw up another tower just because you want to own your own. I mean, you have to prove that you can't co-locate. I think finally, we also talked about putting it behind the building, thinking that would screen it a lot better from Main Street, but there isn't a lot of room behind the back of the building and the creek, and there's also a pretty big utility easement that runs back there, which is a no-no. And then also there's a loading dock that got built on the biggest portion of the ground behind the building, and so there's like literally no space for it. So we did check that option. Did I miss anything?
No. Would address the regulation and whether, I know that was put together some years ago.
Yeah, in fact, that was going to be my comment. Our existing ordinance is from 1997. So, it's 18 years old, and certainly the technology has changed. And somebody made the comment, too, that it's a 105-foot tower, which is generally small by comparison. Most of the towers we see go up are 140 to 150. But they felt that was all the height they needed to serve this area. And again, Mr. Duran, I think, could speak to more to the demands. I know, Ms. Gaines, to your point, too, there's a couple of properties in the PUD that are under different ownership. The one restaurant has been vacant for quite some time. Keep our fingers crossed. We've met with some perspective. We've heard that the property's sold, and so we've met with them, and we're hoping that property's going to be reoccupied, and that's an opportunity for us to go in there and work with somebody to try and dress up the landscaping on that side as well.
I don't know if you need to hear, there is a representative here from both the applicant and I think we have the cell tower company. Do you want to hear from him? He may be able to answer some technical questions. I don't know if you need that or.
Ms. Gaines?
Again, referencing back a number of years ago. When we were talking about towers then, and we were concerned about the height, but we kind of came to the conclusion, if I'm not incorrect, that the height isn't necessarily the issue, because once it's up there, people aren't looking up that much at it. And actually, the lower they are, the more obtrusive they are. And so then my question kind of does come that maybe the representative could answer is there more chance of
Location.
Location, thank you. If it was built a bit higher, so that we're actually making certain that eventually, we would be thinking ahead. Because to be quite honest, the higher it is, I'm okay with that. I don't know if anybody else is, but.
And could I have your name and address for the record, too?
Yeah, my name is Dan Duran. Address is 144 West Lockwood, Suite 200, Webster Groves, Missouri, 63119. So in answer to your question, and I'm curious, does anyone else on the council share those sentiments? Because obviously, from our perspective, the taller the tower, the better. So usually, we're lowering the height, but we're certainly, willing to, consider that option to make it taller. It is designed for co-location, so I'm here on behalf of SBA, which is a tower management company. And then Verizon Wireless is going to be the first tenant. So what that means, Verizon had a need in this particular area. They had gaps in coverage and capacity. And so because of, the co-location ordinances, which are pretty standard in almost all municipalities, they'll farm out their tower building to a company like SBA. So SBA's business model is based on, having future tenants, having multiple carriers on this tower. So that's their goal, that's their purpose. So the reason we chose this location in particular, Verizon has an RF department, RF engineers, radio frequency engineers, and they provide to us what's called a search ring. And so that basically tells us where they're having issues. That's based on customer feedback, dropped calls, slow data speeds, things of that nature. So they're usually very small, within an eighth of a mile to a quarter of a mile radius to be able to meet the particular need. And so in this case, given those parameters, we did consider a lot of options. Like Mercy said, we looked behind the building. Had we gone back there, the best we could have done would have been a compound that would have maybe accommodated 2 carriers, Verizon and one other. And it would have been very, very tight for the second carrier. This particular location actually gives us more ground space, which allows us to have potentially 3 co-locators in the future. So that was one of the reasons it was attractive to us, and we felt would also be attractive to the town. Basically, the challenge that we always face in this business is, where can we put one of these towers that it's going to meet ordinance, and it's going to meet code, and still provide the service we need. Most of our gaps tend to be near residential. That's where the highest demand is at. And so our goal, and of course, is to get as close to residential as we can without, being on top of people's houses. And so, with the residential to the east side of Main Street, again, then the apartments to the west of the creek, and then, of course, north of Orlando. We didn't really have a lot of options to meet this particular need without moving actually closer to residential. So that's kind of our goal in, when we look for these sites is, where can we meet that need without, being as unobtrusive as possible. And so that was the rationale between this site selection.
Thank you. Questions?
I answered mine. Three possible with the design and the height that you're talking about now.
What would, what's a normal tower co-location or sharing option? Is it usually 3 to 4 additional carriers that you try to accommodate in tower design, or can it be 6? Can it be?
Yeah, I mean, it really is dependent. I would say 3 to 5 is standard. It depends on really how much, ground space you have, for shelters and or equipment. And then, the structural soundness of the tower, but a 105-foot tower, antennas have to be mounted 10 feet apart from each other, so they don't interfere with each other. So, so you have a center line of 105 feet, 95 feet, 85 feet. Those are all, good center lines, especially for this, like I said, type of location that's, very near residential. So, we feel this will be an attractive tower for future carriers.
So I guess my question though is would it behoove us to look at making this, to saying we have no issue with making it taller? Or are we all wanting it to be smaller? Because I would propose that, because I think up higher, you're not going to see as many of the things that are on the top when they're lower.
So you're asking for a taller tower if we
I'm
want to
asking
approve a
for a
tower at
taller
all?
Now, would you also, that would accommodate more co-location, which is probably okay. That means fewer towers.
I mean, I think
What you want.
that's what we want.
That's what you want.
The company sounds amenable to that.
What's the
More
maximum?
expensive, but
What's the
probably-
maximum tower height?
Maximum, I don't know, there is a maximum.
I
Is there
think the
a
tallest we've
monopole?
had constructed in our community is 150. But there's certainly,
Is,
the
for a
tower in
monopole,
downtown
is
Bloomington.
this a monopole type tower?
Yes,
Is there
yes,
a
it is.
maximum height on a monopole?
I mean, there's not technically, it tends to be 140 to 150 for a monopole.
On those co-located towers, the devices, at what level what's the lowest level they are set at? You said 85 feet is a good, I think you said line of sight. What is a good line? On a co-located tower, how high would those devices be? How low would they be?
Yeah, so that's highly variable depending on basically the search area. So they can be lower. It's really dependent. Just as a rule of thumb, every carrier wants to be as tall as possible. It gives you the most coverage. And then they sacrifice height, when they have to, but they'd rather be as high as possible. I would say 50 to 60 is about as low as I've personally ever seen, in order to really give you any kind of coverage or make it, worthwhile from the carrier standpoint.
Mr. Day, do we need an amendment on this, or can we just
Mayor.
leave the option open?
Mr. Trell's got it.
If we're contemplating modifying the height, this was advertised and processed through the
Oh,
public
through
hearing.
planning
It's
commission,
105
so we
feet,
have to-
So we may have to remand it back if there's that appetite to do so.
That also expands the waiver, too.
Right.
Can I get a consensus of what people?
And
feel about
also,
that?
not to interrupt, one potential option is these towers can actually be built to be extendable. So we could essentially build a 105-foot tower and make it extendable. And then in the future, if it needed to be extended, SBA could come back at that time and extend the tower. I mean, they'd have to go through, obviously, the zoning again for whatever that extension would be, but we do that, pretty often as well. So that's an option to consider.
Well, that makes the decision-making easier. That puts the choice on you whether to proceed with that type of tower or not. And we can go ahead with the process one way or another tonight.
And so that's purely a decision on your part whether to build a extendable tower?
Well, it'd have to come back to the council, or through the process to do that, is what I'm hearing.
If they were going to extend it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I think he would probably like to hear some feedback that you're amenable to that, because that, I'm sure, is a more expensive tower.
Yeah, it is. From SBA's standpoint, I think that would be very attractive to them. Of course, they
Sure.
want to have the option, number one, to have as many co-locators as possible. That's as many, rent-paying tenants as possible. And then being able to offer, more height, again, is also more attractive to their tenants. So, I think they would be very open to an extendable tower.
So I'll ask again, if there's objection at this point, I think this would be the time to state that.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
No objection, and I'm just going to say the co-location option, to keep that as strong as possible, and to make sure that in so doing, that you're not turning down people then that come and say, I want to be on this, and you go, well, I've got to put more height on it, and it's too much trouble, and so on, because that defeats our goal of trying to get these situated where we don't have a lot of towers. And so that would be my goal for the same reason.
Okay.
Thank you. Further discussion on this?
I'm still not sold on this location. And in the Planning Commission minutes, it says this is the center of the problem area, and I understand that. And I think what I'm hearing is if you go with a taller tower at a further distance away, it would still accommodate our needs, right? It would still reach within that 1/8 mile or 1 mile radius. There were no other towers to co-locate on at this time. I understand that. But I still don't know that there were other areas in the community that we looked at that are within that 1 mile radius.
Thank you. Further discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
No.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The resolution is approved. That concludes our omnibus this evening. We have no general orders tonight. We have 2 items of new business. The first is a motion to approve a reappointment to the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. Motion for approval, please.
Move approval.
Second.
As this is an item of personnel, there will be no discussion unless a council member would like to take this to executive session. And seeing no such request, please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The appointment is approved. Mrs. Reese, if you
Sure.
would read that appointment.
Happy to announce that Mr. Carl Teichman has been reappointed. He's been serving on the Regional Planning Commission since 2006. I think he might be the chair. Is he chair right
He
now?
was the chair.
He was the chair. Chair roles come and go, but he has been, and represents us very nicely. So we're pleased to have him willing to do this again.
Thank you. Our final item of new business tonight is a presentation by the representatives of Hitchcock Design Group, and that's on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that we're all quite well aware of. And welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Well,
Gary, you want, yeah, go ahead, Gary.
thank you. We have, as the mayor said, we have 2 representatives from the Hitchcock Design Group. We have Bill Inman and Bob Igems, and we have been going through a community engagement process over the past several months, and they're here to report on that and next steps, and to really get some feedback and input from you folks. So I'm going to just turn it over to Bill and let him go.
Sounds good. Good evening, everybody. What we're going to do tonight is just give you a quick update on where we've been, where we are in the process, what we've done so far. We'll move through the materials fairly quickly. If you keep it informal, if anybody wants to stop us along the way, please just shout out and we'll answer any questions. What we're going to review tonight is really the summary of the community engagement phase. It was very important to the city that we reached out to the community during this process to see what they thought. And we have summaries of that for you tonight. And then essentially what we think the strategies are, really in no particular order at this point. We call this the alternative strategies phase for that reason. So what are the opportunities? And next steps will really be to refine those and start to establish some priorities and things of that nature. So I'm going to keep it pretty high level today. So where we're at in the process right now is at the left end of this chart. You may recall this from our first discussion together. Assess is the inventory and analysis phase, really getting smart about all of your assets, programs, and services. Connect is the community engagement phase, and Envision is the alternative strategies phase, which is where we're at right now. So we're about halfway through the process, a little bit more at this point. So the Connect phase, again, a very robust outreach to the community. We took several different angles to engaging the town of Normal. Several workshops were conducted, certainly one with the town council, as you recall. In the very beginning, we had 3 different categorical staff groups we held workshops with, engaged 11 stakeholder groups, held 2 community meetings that were reasonably well attended, and then of course we had Engage Normal, which is the online community engagement platform that we established and operated for a little over a month. So looking at the workshops initially, we had, again, the town council and the 3 staff groups, admin and marketing, really the hospitality portion of Parks and Recreation staff, marketing being the folks that represent the brand of Park and Recreation. Programs are the folks that are really front line with programs and services, and of course parks and facilities, the folks that are maintaining the assets that in which we run those programs. Stakeholders that were engaged range from adjacent agencies, like-minded and cooperative agencies, as well as other local groups and sports affiliates. So looking back at the initial town council meeting, there were several things that council had brought up. Celebrating the successes of the theater certainly came to mind, and then towards the bottom of this list, some discussions about indoor space and the programs that may be desirable to be operated indoors and the space not being available to do so. There was certainly much discussion about demographics, and certainly character of the assets along the way. The second slide is, again, more discussion about demographics, both at-risk teens and the fact that Normal is essentially aging in place demographically, and some questions about how the plan might address that. Coordination with other agencies, and of course, being fiscally responsible along the way. The administrative and marketing staff also was asked to comment mostly on specifically their world and what they thought the plan should address, as well as just as very close to your community, any other ideas that they might have had. This list is a summary of the highlights of that discussion. Certainly more discussions about indoor recreation space, sports, partnerships, and of course what is important in their mind to the community. Volunteers came up several times between the staff groups. Excellent volunteer base here in town, and so many that it's challenging to operate from year to year on occasions. Programming staff, again, this is the staff that is charged with operating the programs and services that your community engages in within the assets that you own and manage. There's some discussion about what was needed and potentially in decline. Again, more discussion about the indoor space needs as it related to the programs that they're currently serving, where those demands are. So of course we're looking at cancellation rates and how that was affecting this group of staff. Senior programs, certainly the compliment with the township came up. Again, more celebration about main assets, including museum and theater. And in this particular case, it was lack of consistency with volunteers, not a lack of quantity. But the facility point was very loud and clear with that group. Parks and facility staff, all groups were very passionate, very skilled, represent the city very, very well, and quite knowledgeable of their areas of focus. And Parks and facility staff, very driven group, wants to do their best at taking care of things. They highlighted a few things that they thought the plan needed to address as it related to condition, use, and popularity. First community meeting was held at the Community Activity Center, and it's a summary of the sticky board on the bottom right and then the tabulation. Most of the comments had to do with indoor rec center and the desire to see a facility like that constructed within Normal that would be available for all residents to use. Trails was a close second, and the offering of more programs specifically to be held indoors mostly was a close third for that first community meeting. Second community meeting was held at the library, and again, leading off that show was much discussion about the indoor rec center and trail improvements, and more focus on partnerships, interagency partnerships, and then you can see the other results down the line. So a couple of very excellent engagement sessions there, boots on the ground, and some very positive voices. Quick summary of the online engagement platform, really an excellent turnout. You really never know how these are going to go. It's an unfiltered online engagement platform, and but we had over 7,000 page views through 1,500 visitors, and it really only came down to 200 plus participants, 44 comments, and then lots of interactions on those comments. So the summary of those really did boil down to these 5 points, which was the soccer and sports complex, what's going to happen with the future of soccer. Passive recreation was very popular, as well as natural areas and programs related to nature studies. Indoor recreation, again, there was a lot of discussion about that, including indoor aquatics and the programs held within a prospective indoor rec center. Trails, hugely popular and in existence, and more comments about how do we make that even better. And then, of course, living within our means also came out loud and clear. So The next step that we're going to look at, the back half of this program, is alternative strategies, and Bob's going to go through that, which is here are the opportunities that we see for the town.
Great. With the alternative strategies, it's really a culmination of what we heard during the Connect phase, the needs assessment portion, and the inventory analysis. So what we found out when we did our inventory of each of the parks and facilities and your programs, compared those to national and state averages, and really started to see what the opportunities or issues were. And what we started with was just an example on the screen, our alternative strategy spreadsheet, which listed out all the opportunities and the justification for those potential opportunities. This is a 20-page document that we went through with staff that was organized in parks, facilities, programs, operation, and admin. So we won't go through all that detail tonight. We're going to walk you through really the top 10 or so strategy categories, which are shown on the screen now. Within each of these strategy categories, there's various levels or detail that we'll go through, really starting with the agreements portion. So we understand you have an agreement with School District Unit 5 and with your indoor space and your aquatics, and really sitting down with them and defining the expectations, defining the agreement, making sure access, coordination, scheduling, everyone's on the same page with that agreement, and then reviewing those with the principals annually to again reinforce those expectations for the Parks Department. From a demographic and programming standpoint, we understand that it's very important to address those key areas, starting with your active adults, your students, and your minority population. From an active adult standpoint, the opportunity to expand your fitness, wellness, your active weight training programs, understanding where you can complement the senior programming now that the township will be relocating to their new facility, providing indoor space that's relevant to seniors, social spaces, considering aquatics for indoor active adults. Your trails, outdoor fitness can be key components for that outreach, and then some additional contemporary park amenities such as pickleball, and then expanding your partnership or your outreach and your participation with your volunteer programs for seniors, potentially holding focus groups to really find out where they'd like to be involved. From your student population, we understand that really strong volunteer opportunities exist, and developing a program where you could database those volunteers, evaluate, have an opportunity for different sections of the department to draw from those volunteers, and maybe even consider a park program or a park points program to where you're offering incentives for your students to participate. Again, trail extensions, fitness would be another outreach avenue for your students. We understand there are already a huge percentage of users of the trail. In terms of marketing, using signage to advertise your programs and your events to help target volunteers. And then continue to stay in front of the electronic and the social media outreach with those users. From a minority standpoint, really developing your relationships with the church organizations, your business leaders, social organizations to really understand what other opportunities in terms of special events and programs the town could provide to really engage those users. We understand that the events that you've held, the Day of the Dead at CDM has been great. Continuing with those ideas, considering opportunities for SOAR at the Community Activity Center now that the township will be leaving. Expanding your performing and cultural arts to really target the minority population, and setting up your outdoor amenities to cater to those groups as well. From an open space standpoint, in terms of national standards, when you include your current population, your acreage is a little low in terms of acres per thousand level of service. Once you pull out your ISU population of 20,000 in that category or in that study, you're actually pretty close. You're at about 9 acres per thousand, and a national standard would be 10 acres per thousand. So we don't feel that you really need to target acquisition specifically for open space, but there are a few key areas where it would be appropriate to look at acquisition and development of park space to address the distribution of where your parks are and where your residents are. And then also, potentially to target open space that would be dedicated for your active soccer and potential baseball opportunities. The North Bridge site, which should come online based on your land cash ordinance off of Zebarth Road, would activate about 17 acres towards your community and neighborhood park space. So that's something that's in the works. Something else that's been discussed along with the Uptown 2.0 planning process is targeting some open space for planning area 17 and 19 just south of Uptown to activate some key open space that would really complement the Uptown development and serve a deficiency in terms of open space for those residents in those areas. In terms of indoor space, there's a few options to explore on how to provide outdoor recreation space for the town. One idea would be expansion to the community activity center. This could be an interim goal or a long-term goal. Another idea would be to acquire an existing indoor facility that could be renovated to meet your specific needs for indoor space. Consider property acquisition specifically for the development of an indoor piece of property, and also could provide some open space for soccer, baseball. And the fourth option would really look at, can we provide an indoor space on an existing open space asset within the town? And a few options may be at Maxwell Park. There is some open space on the north end of the site to where you could, let's see if my laser pointer works here, maybe locate an indoor facility, expand parking in this location to complement Champion Field, and also serve the rest of the open space needs at Maxwell. At One Normal Plaza, some open space where the facility could go, maybe near Lincoln Avenue, where it's up front and visible, or using some open space over on the east side of that property. In terms of activating your community activity center, there's some opportunities to really reinvigorate or make that space a little bit more relevant now that the township would be vacating. One opportunity would be to renovate the facility to provide indoor fitness or a small health center. Consider rebranding the facility, giving it an update in terms of the exterior, maybe the control desk area, and then really dedicating that building maybe as your performing arts facility for theater, dance, et cetera. We understand your dance programs are continually in demand. And then repurposing any space within that facility for additional programmable multi-purpose space. In terms of new indoor recreation, really it starts with developing a business plan. What's your financial goals? What's the expectations for revenue? What's the intent for indoor recreation? Once that's clearly defined, looking at 3 opportunities of how you can achieve that. The first one would be developing more of a field house facility that may be a single-purpose, purpose-driven facility that could have 2 to 3 gyms that might be multi-purpose that you could put basketball courts, volleyball courts down, maybe overlay it with synthetic turf. So you're continually programming this facility for rentals, for athletic events, really a tourism catalyst as well. And then you're also serving the needs for your indoor rec programming from the department. The next option would be developing a traditional recreation center with elements mentioned from above, and then also fitness, tracks, maybe indoor aquatics, like I said, more of a traditional rec center. The third option is a partnership with the school district where you look at a joint use facility that may be developed as a part of one of the high schools or planned with one of their new school future sites. In terms of maintenance, we understand they're busting at the seams. There's 2 locations now. Their day-to-day operations include unpacking the buildings to get the vehicles out and then packing them back up at the end of the day. And so looking at acquiring additional land to set up a new dedicated maintenance facility. And we have just an aerial of the Connie Link facility to touch on in a second. The second option would be considering your maintenance hub at either One Normal Plaza or maybe at Maxwell Field to really have a dedicated location. Just one idea with repurposing the maintenance at the Connie Link facility. We were intrigued with the idea of additional open space and additional parking that would enhance that experience at Connie Link. Again, provide more parking and outdoor amenities in that location. In terms of trails, starting to look at how to address your circulation opportunities within the uptown area. Understand there's conflicts with pedestrians, vehicular, and the rail. Consider trail connections from Kelly Detention Basin to One Normal Plaza to really encourage users to both of those sites. And then also some on-street signage and wayfinding off of Lincoln Street to One Normal Plaza, trying to get users to that facility. And then prioritizing your trail connections to your key locations or your key destinations, your parks, your schools, and uptown. And then looking at your trail development standards, restroom amenities, where those should be located within the trail, trailheads, wayfinding, and some just example photos of some of those amenities that could be incorporated into your trail system. Understand it's a great gem to the community, and there's really there's quite a few opportunities to enhance that. In terms of soccer, we understand there's thousands of kids that participate in your program. With the current situation at the airport, need to address how we're going to provide those kids and those users open space to continue their program. So the first option to look at acquisition opportunities where there's enough open space to provide the quantity of fields, a location that's highly visible, accessible, serves as a catalyst for tourism. Really playing off of your scenario that you have a champion fields in softball to address that, similar to soccer. Looking at, are there a few locations within your existing open space where there could be some fields located? And really the third option is programming your soccer fields really just within your existing soccer fields on site in your neighborhood and community parks. And that's probably a cooperation or coordination consideration with Bloomington. And just quickly, looking at Maxwell, there is some open space within the disc golf area where there could be a few fields that could be located. We understand this would have impacts for the existing amenities on site with disc golf, with cross country, things of that nature. But there are opportunities to expand parking and to provide some fields. With baseball, again, a lot of discussions on how to serve the baseball program, similar to softball. Softball is a highly successful, a great facility at Champion Fields. Looking at exploring acquisition to serve your baseball program or potentially locate some additional fields at Maxwell. Maxwell's come up quite a bit throughout this presentation, just with various moving pieces and opportunities at that site. But there could be 2 to 4 fields that could be added at Maxwell to help with the baseball deficiency. Passive recreation came up quite a bit through the community meetings and through MindMixer, and then also through your parks and maintenance staff wanting to provide additional passive and natural opportunities, looking at boardwalks, outdoor classrooms, really to enhance your existing natural areas at Elder and Children's and then at Maxwell Park, and then looking at converting some of your turf areas to native plantings, and that can be done at East Detention Basin and Kelly Detention Basin. And just a few inspirational images of passive opportunities that could be incorporated in some of your open space. And those could be integrated in your elder and children's forest over on the east side, and then also on the southwest side of Maxwell, near the interstate. Again, at Kelly Detention Basin, we could see various strategic locations for native plantings and boardwalks and some additional passive amenities there. Similar approach with East Detention Basin as well. There are some soccer programming and practicing that occurs here, but the site continually is wet and a challenge to maintain, and it's not a specific game field opportunity for soccer. In terms of adventure amenities, looking at being able to provide additional trends or outdoor recreation opportunities to the town that's not currently in place. So opportunities with mountain biking, cyclocross, warrior dash, single tracks, chunk trails, things that of that nature that revolve around mountain biking and biking in general. There may be some opportunities at Maxwell Park where those could be implemented. Some adventure courses, zip lines, teams courses, and then outdoor fitness came up quite a bit for opportunities. Either their fitness stations or their outdoor spaces where you could do yoga, CrossFit, aerobics, things of that nature, where you could take some of those programming amenities outside and some representative and inspirational photos for those amenities. Another trend component to consider would be outdoor classrooms and how to provide educational spaces within your parks, looking at your key natural areas to provide those, and then also addressing some cultural needs, maybe integrating some sculpture into the Constitution Trail or some of the key park locations. And looking at some outdoor classrooms and educational interpretive signage and sculpture for those. Playgrounds came up during the original town council meeting, the desire to have contemporary, unique elements, things to provide a regional draw, and so considering nature-based play components or some other contemporary components at some of your key park locations, and some examples of a few projects that integrate nature-based play, alternative options to really educate and immerse your children into nature. And then some unique, downtown type play elements that isn't provided currently within the park system.
So that is the compilation of the inventory and analysis and the community engagement phases so far. Parks and recreation in the town of Normal is big business, and these are all of the ideas that have been synthesized from those two processes. We'd love to entertain any questions or comments that you have on what you've seen so far. Otherwise, we do understand that everybody has a copy of the presentation. You could cycle any comments back through your director, and that will get back to us. Next steps, of course, would be to begin to refine these strategies. Attainability, of course, is important to the council, very important to us. We believe we've succeeded when you can actually accomplish this plan in its time frame that we've set forth. So that is the next step for our team, is to begin to put this into essentially an attainable calendar for adoption. So that's all we have for you tonight.
Questions?
Comment. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of information.
No, I'm really glad to see the
Go over
next
it
step.
again if you like.
Yeah, is to prioritize, because there's literally too much to grasp in this brief presentation. But I'm really impressed with the thoroughness of the attention to the detail that you all have taken. So I look forward to seeing the prioritization. Clearly, every project is going to require some sort of fund source, and so we're very much interested in those priorities. But yeah, wow, thank you very much. I think you did a great job.
I agree.
Thank you, gentlemen. There's lots to consider here. Mrs. Reese?
I was going to say, I attended one of your sessions, and it was fascinating as something came up, a few people were interested, and then they began to talk about it, and then you saw the group kind of coalesce around the idea because they began to see the vision, the rec center, that idea took off, and I think it was influenced by some people that had vision and were able to articulate what they thought about it, and others, it opened their eyes. So I would say that about everything that you've got here. You have given us so many things to help us open our eyes to such a wide array of needs, such a wide array, and such a small budget. But that's okay. We can make it work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Thank you.
That concludes our new business tonight. Before a motion for adjournment, are there comments or concerns? Mr. Peterson?
Just an announcement. Miles was here a minute ago, and he stepped away. Miles Band from ISU. Our plan is to hold your April 6th meeting on the campus of the university. Miles is still working on location. Probably be the circus room in Bone Student Center, but I don't think he's got that nailed down yet. But we'll get that out to you in advance. So, and we'll send out reminders and so forth. So that's the plan. April 6th.
Thank you. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Ms. Gaines?
Aye.
Mrs. Reese?
Aye.
Mr. Fritzen?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. We are adjourned.
I need to catch a few. Yeah. I'm going to see if I can catch these guys about that issue I talked to you and Jeff about real quickly.
I'll call him. He usually gets right back, or I can call him. Cell phone.
Okay. But timing-wise, I mean, do you know, I haven't heard any more about the status as far as when they need to have access, and I know that's what I thought. Yeah. And I certainly won't meet that deadline because it's another couple weeks at least, once approved. But at least it's facilities is kind of cleaned up and still have work to do, but.
I'll take it back then. I'll stand there.
Okay.
But usually roll through breaks.
It probably is.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me know what you hear. Okay, thanks. I would just say, we declined liability. So sorry. But just to be safe, I'll see you.
The gray hair, the gray hair getting
That's not right. I think, Peterson wants to talk to us.
I didn't want a 105-foot tower.
If you vote in favor, that means you move to reconsider at the next meeting.
Right.